That game was over about 5 minutes into it, as it was apparent that Jalen Hurts was 100%. And it was also apparent that, the Eagles have a much better roster, and Howie Roseman has been building this roster, and Nick Sirianni's been there for a couple of years. And that's where Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll find themselves now. They had a little bit of success. They outkicked their coverage, if you will. They got some breaks along the way. They may have found their long-term solution at quarterback. They have a lot of contracts to decide whether or not they're going to pick guys back up or they're going to let guys walk. There'll be compensatory picks if they let some players walk. But, at the end of the day, they are still in a cash-strapped situation. The salary cap should go up to about $225 million. That's what most people are estimating for 2023 to be up to. So that will give them some room to sign Daniel Jones to a contract. And I still believe that they are close to getting him done, in a reasonable way. And I think that reasonable way is going to be somewhere between, 4 years and somewhere between probably 130 and 150 million. Somewhere around there, because, you got to start with the franchise tag, which is over 32 million right now. So, for the Giant fan, there's hope is alive now. Hope is that you have a coach that you believe in and that you like and that he got the most out of this team. He kind of fixed your quarterback and got him right and made him more of a positive than he was a net negative. And the other thing, too, is that there's just a general, I think, feeling of positivity around I want to say, and you can't look at Saturday night and then say the same thing, but I think it's prior to Saturday night. There is a level of competitiveness that we haven't seen here for about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, going into this season, what you wanted to know was, do you have a coach and what's your quarterback situation going to be? And you got those answered. Now, I think it took a longer time to get the quarterback question answered, but I believe it has been answered. And I was one of the biggest Daniel Jones detractors there were, but I don't believe at this point you can let him go elsewhere despite the performance on Saturday night. You can't completely toss it out.
He had no chance.
But, the way he played for a majority of the year, he earned that contract. And, of course, the head coach, who should be the coach of the year, you were able to get that and feel good about that. And I think you also feel good about your general manager. So, yes, there's big decisions to be made. And one of them that we're going to talk about just probably as much as the Jets quarterback situation and who they end up with is if they're going to be able to also keep Saquon Barkley on this team. And I think that's going to be the toughest decision for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll and everybody over at the Giants, because the situation that they're in, I know they're going to have more cap space after things shake out, but are you really going to pay a running back when you have to pay your quarterback? And there's other free agents that you want to retain. Leonard Williams has an out. Darius Slayton is an unrestricted free agent. You go through a lot of, Nick Gates, John Feliciano. Those are 2 starting linemen that are free agents. Jihad Ward, who was a big part of this team, is a free agent. Julian Love, O'Shane Jimenez. You go on and on and on about guys that you want to keep on this team. And is Saquon Barkley going to be one of those guys?
Yeah, well, that's a good question for me. I do know that they did offer him a contract right around the bye week, and I guess he turned it down. So I can't imagine that since the bye week to now, the Giants are going to change their stance on what they were offering him.
Sure.
He's looking for more money than, unfortunately, you're going to have to let him walk. I don't know in this day and age. You see Zeke Elliott last night. It's just not the same player that he was 5 years ago.
Yeah, and he's one of those examples of someone who got way too much money as a running back and it didn't work out. Tony Pollard, unfortunately, with the broken leg last night. But, this was a guy who wasn't making any money and was out snapping and out producing Ezekiel Elliott for a significant amount of time. And there's example after example of that in the NFL.
Just don't, when you pay your quarterback, all of a sudden, it's going to have a ripple effect. And that ripple effect most often is a negative ripple effect that somebody is going to get, moved, traded, not re-signed, and you may be unhappy about that, but that's kind of the way it goes in the NFL. And that's why I was saying yesterday in the NFL today, after the Bills and Bengals game was over, that, as long as Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence and those guys stay with their respective franchises, they're always going to have a chance because that's how good they all are. But when you pay the big money, like Patrick Mahomes got, like Josh Allen got, what do you start seeing? You start seeing guys ending up leaving, and going to elsewhere for greener pastures, meaning money. And it unfortunately comes back onto that quarterback that, he's got to be above everybody else, and he's got to bring everybody else's level of play up. Like, why do you think Aaron Rodgers lost Devontae Adams? Why do you think, Patrick Mahomes lost Tyreek Hill?
Well, yeah, and I'll give you another example. Why do you think that the only Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes has so far is before he got paid? Aaron Rodgers, the only Super Bowl he has is before he got paid. Russell Wilson, the only Super Bowl he has is before he got paid. Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl he won was before he got paid. So there's
Goes on and on and on.
So, and that's what Howie Roseman is doing with the Philadelphia Eagles, going all in when he's got a quarterback that's making basically no money, and then he's filling the roster with superstars around him because he already did that back in 2017 and it worked.
So you're going to see a couple of things this offseason. Herbert, Tagovailoa, and Joe Burrow all are going to get contract extensions.
Yeah.
That means, like in Cincinnati, there's potential that a guy like T. Higgins could be available via trade, because he's a second-round draft choice. He's in the third year of a 4-year contract, and he ain't playing for what they're paying next year. Think A.J. Brown, think Tyreek Hill, think Devontae Adams. He is like now in that situation where he could be a number one receiver if a team can trade for him and then give him the contract extension that he wants. But which team can do that, and which team can afford that? He's going to be one of the higher-paid players on your team if that, in fact, happens. Can you add him and still pay Daniel Jones and still pay Saquon Barkley? The answer to that is no, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think that what they were able to do with lesser talent offensively is going to want everybody to see them who's a Giants fan go out and get more talent at that position, because that's going to be the rallying cry. Look what Daniel Jones was able to do with nobody out there. If you give him bigger weapons, better weapons, pass-catching tight end, big wide receiver, what could this offense be with Brian Daboll? And right there is the biggest question that you just posed is, can you add that guy when you've got all these other issues and guys that you have to sign? And I do think that's where, for me personally, if I had to make a decision between re-signing Saquon Barkley or using that money to go get a bigger weapon at wide receiver, I'm going out and getting that wide receiver 10 times out of 10, especially with the way that the NFL, you see these wide receivers, the top-end wide receivers, change the game more than anybody else, other than the quarterback, that is.
The other thing, too, is, I want my quarterback to run less. I don't want him running more. And the one thing that we have seen this year from Daniel Jones is that he's had to do both. He's had to run and he's had to throw. Now, he's not even close to 3,500 yards in completions in terms of yardage. And I know he played one less game. But, that's not the way to survive in the NFL. Asking your quarterback to have to run for like 74, 75 yards a game, you're asking for, trouble.
Yeah.
So, I want to see more of a drop back game. I want to see more of like a Brock Purdy game yesterday. I'd like to see more of a Joe Burrow game. Those are the types of games you want to see. A quarterback that sits in the pocket, that's going to get rid of the ball and it's going to be accurate with it and spread it around, as opposed to running and having to take on guys and having to do even more heavy lifting. It's hard enough to play quarterback as it is. When they're calling for you to run the ball 10 times a game or 15 times a game on top of making, say, 35 passing decisions, that's putting a lot on that quarterback's shoulders. So I think it was apparent on Saturday night that with Daniel Jones needs help. Evan Neal had a tough game. Not a great pass blocker right now. He'll be better next year. This is usually the, kind of what happens with these young kids.
Well, same with Andrew Thomas. Remember,
yes.
Early portion of his career, people were all over him.
So he'll be better next year. But, again, and then you take a look at guys like Lane Johnson, who's playing hurt, and how he engulfed Kayvon Thibodeau on passing plays.
Yeah.
I was just
with a groin injury.
There was just not a sniff from the rookie. Now, the rookie had 8 tackles. I think it was 4, tackles by himself, and then had 4 assists. But, he was not a non-factor in passing, and this is why he was drafted. He's supposed to impact the passing game.
Sure.
And unfortunately, for him, he had to go up against one of the best right tackles in all of the NFL, and he kind of engulfed him.
Yeah, and I think that the big things that are going to be the holes that need to be filled for the Giants is they have to get better at linebacker, and they have to get more offensive weapons for Daniel Jones. That is the big those two big holes, because clearly that's what held them back. And I do like the fact that, when the secondary was healthy, they did look better other than Saturday night. And I do think that the defensive line, as currently constructed, is one that's formidable. However, I don't know if Leonard Williams is going to be around because he's got that out in his contract. He probably could get paid more elsewhere. He can
get a longer contract elsewhere. I don't know how much more he would get paid.
Well, he was also asked, though, because everybody's been thinking about this, but they asked him after the game or whatever, locker cleanout day the next day, would you take a pay cut if you had to stay here?
Absolutely.
And he goes,
not.
I would only do that if my agent advised me to. And the agent's not going to advise him to. So
no, I mean, like this idea that guys have to take pay cuts is ridiculous to me. Now, I understand if you're a 10 or 11-year wide receiver,
sure,
and you're trying to hang on, that's a different story. Like if they went to Kenny Golladay, you want to stay here, we ain't paying you what you were supposed to pay you next year. Maybe we'll give you another shot here, although that's not going to happen. I could understand that, but for a guy like Leonard Williams, who's out there every single game, plays a lot of plays, and is a very effective player, although he doesn't jump off the screen at you. That guy will find a home somewhere else for a longer-term deal and more guaranteed money.
It really is a shame that it ended for Giants fans the way that it did in just a total blowout. I mean, I don't think that's going to wash away all the good that happened. It definitely leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But, I mean, it made you forget for a little bit, where the team came from. And I always say once you get there, make the most out of it. But clearly they just had no shot in the football game. But, I mean, there were very few people that thought that this team could be a playoff team, much less go on the road and win a playoff game.
Well, that's the point. They won a playoff game.
Right.
Now if you're a Giant fan, you have hope.
You do.
And the
first time in a very long time.
Right. And you're going to watch Joe Shane kind of go through with a surgical knife.
Yeah.
And slice and dice and make the decisions that he's going to have to make. And some of them are going to have to be really hard. But again, I always go back to, as a general manager, what do I say? You have to be ruthless. You have to be. And, and the good thing is he's only been here for a year, less than a year, actually.
Yeah.
And, he doesn't have these relationships with these people. That's the beauty of coming from outside. And, of course, you got to sit down with John Mara. And, John Mara may really want Saquon to stay here and may bite the bullet and give him some more money. But at the end of the day, does it really truly make sense to pay a running back when you have to pay your quarterback? To me, it does not.
Right. And I really don't think that that's the route that they want to go. But John Mara can't be meddling that much, though, Kenny. I mean, I understand that he said
he's a part of it.
But I mean, if Joe Shane's like, listen, we can't pay the running back. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. We could have as much production, maybe not as much production. We can get production elsewhere if we spend money in different places. And John Mara's like, I want to keep Saquon a Giant for the rest of his career. I'd be like, why did I take this job?
There are 32 owners, and every single one of their owners, of these owners, and also some of their family members, have an ability to make decisions that impact what's going on the field. I'm just telling you that. A lot of teams do, and rightfully so. If I were an owner, I would say so. I'd want them to come to me and say, this is what we're doing, and I want to be a part of the plan, and I want to understand what your vision is. And that's one of the reasons why you hire guys. So you hire Joe Shane to now rebuild this team. He got a late start last year, had to clean up a mess, had to let go of some guys like Bradbury that he did not want to let go. Bradbury could say whatever he wants. Oh, they didn't want me. Hey, it's not about that. They wanted you. It's about the money that you were making, and they had to make hard decisions. So he made, and he has already shown that he will make hard decisions because he did last year. Now he's going to have to do it again.
And I think even harder because he does know these guys now, and they did have success. And I think that it was a lot easier when he came in and knew nothing about the team to be able to make those tough decisions. I mean, now that this team is going to be special to them for a long time because they overachieved and it was their first year there and they had a lot of great moments. It's going to be tougher to be ruthless. I still think he will be, but it's more difficult the second year.
Let's be realistic about this. You take the Giants and then you put them in the same boat as San Francisco, Dallas, and Philadelphia. Are they even remotely in that boat with those teams?
Not right now, no.
No, they're not. Yeah. Let's be honest, they're not. And it's okay. I mean, but the fact that they won a playoff game is amazing. And it's unfortunate, like you said, the way that it ended. But now it's up to Joe Shane to be realistic and look at, what we have here, what we're dealing with in our own division. And by the way, Washington ain't bad either. Washington's no like slouch defensively. They're pretty good defensively. They got their quarterback issues and their offensive issues. But I would say in your own division, you're the third best team, if not tied with the fourth best team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, so you have two teams that are significantly better than you and do have some really, really great players that are playing for them that you don't have. I mean, and you're going to have to figure out how you catch up to those guys.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.